I feel that in comparison with my AS Media project, I undertook more extensive audience research in this project, and it's been invaluable to the production. Once I had a rough outline of the story I wanted to tell, I thought it would be beneficial to share my ideas with the primary target audience. There were several methods I could have used to collect the data, such as questionnaire or surveys, but I felt that in this early stage of development, a focus group would be more practical. My actor informed me he was going to a paintball party where there would be children aged between the years of 8 and 12, which was perfect for my target audience, so I decided to go along, and at the end of the party, I used the now professional paintballers as my focus group. I asked 4 questions in total, and carefully thought about the order in which I would ask them. I first of all discussed the brief synopsis of the film, and then asked the focus group what emotions they would feel if they were stranded on a beach, and the responses were similar, such as feeling tense, nervous, scared and lonely. This was useful feedback because I was able to relay these emotions to my actor, and seeing as there is only one character in the film, I knew that getting the balance of emotions was crucial. There was one question in particular which stimulated a variety of, shall we say, interesting responses, and that was, how would you go about opening the treasure box? One person said he would use TNT, and failing that, sit on the box and wait. But for health and safety reasons, the first suggestion would not be feasible, and seeing as the film has only a 5-minute duration, sitting on the box and waiting for a miracle to happen wouldn't have worked either. A more plausible answer was one where a person said he would use a rock, and upon hearing this, someone else expanded on this and said he'd use a rock to whack the box. This is an example of where a focus group is really useful because it allowed people to develop each other's answers. The most useful question I asked my focus group was, if there was a notepad and pen in the box which granted you wishes, what would you wish for? This question elicited responses to do with luxury items, such as wishing for an Xbox and money, which suggested that especially among the age range of the focus group, the children were more interested in abusing the wishes as opposed to, say, wishing to get off the beach or wishing to be reunited with their family. This prompted me to explore one of the 7 deadly sins, and that was greed, and this allowed me to strengthen the storyline further by using a moral along the lines of be careful what you wish for, which made the film more educational. I felt it was also important to ask some questions to members of my secondary target audience, the parents, because they would be the ultimate people who would take their children to watch the film. Although I could have used a focus group, I felt that individual interviews would be more appropriate because I wanted to gain more in-depth responses from the parents, and more importantly, to see whether their responses were similar. After explaining the storyline to my parents, I asked them if it would be a film that would appeal to them, and all of them said they would watch it, so long as it had a meaning to it, possibly about self-discovery and the boy's journey of perseverance and determination in the absence of adult supervision. This was encouraging because it suggested that the underlying moral would work well. I also gained audience feedback on my first edit, which was really useful because respondents commented on the strengths and areas for development in relation to cinematography, mise-en-scène, editing and sound. One person pointed out that the shot at the beginning of the bedroom scene, which reveals the boy in bed and then the treasure box, was quite juddery. This was something I hadn't noticed myself, and demonstrates that seeking audience feedback after a first edit is really important because it can highlight problems that effectively you've become immune to because you've seen the film so many times already. This first edit feedback was completed by my peers and gave a baseline for what needed improving. I carried out further research by showing my film to 15 members of my target audience and asked them to answer 3 questions I had written down. The final question was probably the most useful, as I was unsure as to whether or not to have the box fading off the beach or whether to just cut straight to the bedroom scene. The comments I gained from this response were positive towards the box vanishing, with the audience members thinking it was mystical and unexpected, and for this reason I decided to keep the vanishing box. I used audience research when trying to decide on the title of my film. I came up with 6 possible title ideas but was torn between all of them because in theory any could have worked. I therefore decided to present 30 members of my target audience with the 6 titles and asked them to vote for their favourite one. The overwhelming majority voted for The Boy, the Beach and the Box, and due to its alliterative rhythm, it's quite a memorable title, and because the target audience liked it, I decided to use it. Audience research played an important part when I was designing my poster. I had taken on board the comments from the parent interviews where, in response to asking them what they would expect to see on the poster, they identified that the scenery would be crucial, as well as the main character and possibly the treasure box. From these responses, I developed 3 potential poster designs, each inspired by existing media texts. Out of the 20 target audience members I asked, 16 voted for the first design, which I further developed to include the treasure box at the bottom half of the screen. Also, for the poster, I was really undecided as to what title font I should use and had 3 ideas. Out of the short films I had researched at the beginning of the project, most of them had really simple titles. When I asked members of my target audience which title they preferred, most opted for the simple design of title number 2, which formed parallels with the font depicted in the notepad of the film. So with 50% of my target audience liking design number 2, and the prior research into short film titles, I decided that this is the one I would go for. Lastly, I utilised audience research in the small attention to detail of my poster. I added a brush stroke effect to form part of the iconography and had 2 levels of intensities and wanted to gain an opinion on which looked better. I was aware that this level of detail is largely down to personal preference and was expecting quite mixed opinions, but 99% of people voted for poster 1, which had less iconography, and due to this extremely strong opinion, this is the layout I settled for. Overall, I think I made the best use of audience research that I could. So the focus group and interviews were crucial in the early stages of the planning, but in post-production, where I wanted to quickly gauge opinions and thoughts from my target audience, I used surveys and asked short questionnaires, which were perfect in helping me make my final decisions, especially to the film poster.